Welcome back to ZNGP Today. Ducati's sporting director Mauro Grassilli hailed Marc Márquez as a superhero after the Spaniard wrapped up the 2025 MotoGP crown at Motegi, but was equally clear that the title would have been impossible without the Italian manufacturer. Grassilli praised Márquez's season while underlining Ducati's central role in turning the comeback story into a championship-winning reality. After a brutal 2025 slump, Pecco Bagnaia turned his Misano-to-Motegi momentum into a breakthrough weekend in Japan, and he's keen to spread the credit. The Ducati rider singled out not only high-profile help from Casey Stoner but also the quieter, detailed work of video analyst Manuel Poggiali for helping diagnose the GP25's troublesome behavior ahead of his Motegi success. Reigning champion Jorge Martin has had surgery on a displaced right collarbone fracture sustained in Saturday's Japanese sprint and will sit out the upcoming Indonesian Grand Prix. Aprilia confirmed the operation in Barcelona and said Martin will not be replaced for Mandalika, with recovery time to be assessed in the coming days. Dorna sports chief Carlos Ezpeleta has moved to calm concerns about the future role of Moto2 and Moto3 after recent rumors suggested the support classes could be marginalized at race weekends. Speaking on the world feed during the Japanese Grand Prix, Ezpeleta insisted the lower categories remain central to MotoGP's ecosystem and denied reports they will be cut back or relegated to Europe-only calendars. Don't forget to click subscribe button and the bell icon for MotoGP news update. Grassilli did not hide his admiration for Márquez's 2025 campaign. 11 Grand Prix wins and 14 sprint victories marked a season the sporting director described as possibly the rider's best ever. Riding the factory Ducati, Márquez combined brutal pace with rare consistency. Seeing him on the red bike was like a superhero. It was the best season ever for Marc. The compliment frames Márquez's individual brilliance as spectacular, but not standalone. Bringing Márquez fully into the factory fold was not straightforward for Ducati. The move required reshuffling seats and difficult calls. Grassilli admitted the choice was tough but insisted it has paid off handsomely. The switch to factory machinery in 2025 completed the arc that began with Márquez's move to Gresini. He said the decision was hard at the time but ultimately a very good choice. Grassilli was blunt about the role Ducati played in Márquez's return to the top. He argued that, without the Desma set-aside package and the factory environment, Márquez would still be in the last part of the grid. The statement stresses the idea that elite rider and elite machine were mutually necessary for the result. Without Ducati he would still be in Honda in the last part of the grid. Without Ducati it was impossible for him. The line reflects the long-running performance gap between brands and the reality that machinery and rider confidence together create champions. Ducati's success in 2025 is not only about one rider. Grassilli reminded listeners that the Marc clinched a sixth consecutive constructors' title. Evidence, he said, that Ducati remains the best bike on the grid. The manufacturer's engineers, development path and resources were presented as the scaffolding for Márquez's achievements. For Ducati, the championship is both validation and a marketing moment. The rider is celebrated, but so is the machine. Grassilli also referenced a corporate aim, sustaining a multi-year run of titles. With 2025 in the books, he flagged 2026 as a critical year to protect Ducati's streak and to be very careful about how the team manages resources, rider pairings and development under the incoming technical cycles. Our CEO said we would like to have 5 years in a row. Next year will be the last of this target, so we have to be very careful. The comment hints at strategic conservatism. Maintaining dominance requires constant vigilance, not complacency. Mauro Grassilli's remarks balance glow and claim, Marc Márquez is a near-mythic performer, a superhero, on track, but Ducati insists that the title was a joint creation. The message is clear for rivals and fans alike. Márquez supplied extraordinary talent and execution, but Ducati supplied the platform that made historic success possible. As the paddock turns to 2026, that partnership will be watched closely, both for how it defends the crown and for whether the balance between rider brilliance and factory firepower can be preserved. Bagnaia was clear that the comeback wasn't a solo epiphany but a group effort. He praised the collaboration between Stoner and Poggiali at the Misano test, saying their aligned observations made the problem hard to ignore. Casey absolutely helped a lot in the Misano test. He was one with Manuel Poggiali, because most of the time we are forgetting about him. The line reframes the narrative. This was forensic troubleshooting, not a last-minute lucky tweak. Bagnaia stressed the value of fresh perspectives. Stoner's rider instincts and Poggiali's video analysis converged on the same symptom: the bike was shaking like hell. That agreement gave engineers a clearer target to address. Both men were saying the same things: with one bike I was perfect and with the other one I was shaking. When sensory feedback and visual data match, the margin for interpretation narrows, and so does the time to a viable fix. Ducati have kept precise technical disclosures cautious, but Bagnaia confirmed hardware tweaks were in play. Reporting suggests he ran GP24 forks, a different swing arm and ride height device, parts already used successfully elsewhere in the factory garage. Those component choices gave him the extra stability and confidence to push. Small changes to suspension and geometry can translate into large gains in front-end feel and more consistent lap times. The Misano test was the crucible: repeated runs, cross-checks between veteran advice and video replay, and then targeted parts swaps. Motegi validated that process. Pole, sprint win and Grand Prix performance showed the diagnosis had merit. It was quite clear, and I think they both helped a lot to understand the way also from another point of view. The story underlines the simple truth of elite motorsport. Iterative testing plus multidisciplinary feedback often beats a single sweeping change. Bagnaia admitted relief and anger in equal measure: relief that form returned, anger that it came late in the campaign. With 5 rounds remaining and a 66-point gap to Alex Marquez, he wants to carry Motegi momentum to Mandalika and beyond. He's very angry the fix arrived so late, but hopeful it can be built upon. The win is momentum, not cure-all. Ducati and Bagnaia still need to prove consistency across different tracks and conditions. Pecco Bagnaia's Motegi revival reads as a technical detective story: veteran rider insight, Stoner, plus meticulous video work. Poggiali identified a repeatable symptom, engineers fitted proven parts, and the result was a clear performance swing. The human footnote matters. In a season of pressure and questions, Bagnaia has chosen to spotlight the unsung analyst as much as the headline advice. If that collaborative spirit endures, Ducati may have more than one route back to the front, and Bagnaia might yet make the late-season climb he's hunting. Martin's crash at the start of the sprint, a heavy contact that also involved teammate Marco Bezzecchi, left the Spaniard with a displaced right collarbone fracture. He returned to Spain on Sunday and underwent reduction and fixation surgery on Tuesday under Dr. Xavier Mir's team at Hospital Universitari Dexius. The club confirmed the procedure and said recovery will be monitored before any decision on further absences is made. Aprilia say they will not field the replacement rider for the Indonesian GP, invoking the relevant sporting regulations. That keeps Martin's seat empty for Mandalika but preserves the option to call on a substitute should the recovery period extend. Test rider Lorenzo Savdori previously stood in for Martin earlier this season, and could be the natural option if a longer absence forces Aprilia's hand. The timing is awkward. Martin's fourth significant injury of a disrupted 2025 campaign comes during a run of tightly packed flyaway rounds, with Phillip Island and Sepping to follow. Missing multiple events could cost points and momentum for both rider and team. Aprilia will balance the need to recover Martin properly against the sporting pressure of upcoming races and potential championship positioning. The FIM stewards are expected to review the incident. Martin may face a penalty for the collision, but the hearing has been deferred until officials can take his account following surgery and initial recovery. Stewards' meetings after incidents often consider intent, braking lines, and race context. Any sanction will be resolved once Martin is fit to speak. Martin entered the weekend with little to lose in the standings after a season of setbacks. However, further absences would likely end any realistic title defense and could prompt Aprilia to seek short-term cover to protect constructor points. Bezzecchi's fourth-place recovery in Japan kept him in contention for top championship positions, but the team will want Martin back healthy and ready rather than rushed back prematurely. Recovery and long-term fitness take priority over an immediate return. Jorge Martin's surgery removes a key variable from the Mandalika weekend. The reigning champion will be absent while his recovery is assessed. Aprilia's cautious stance, no replacement named for Indonesia, and the deferred stewards' hearing reflect an uncertain short-term picture. The focus now is on Martin's rehabilitation and evaluating whether the Spaniard can return for the condensed flyaway schedule that follows. The past week saw a flurry of speculative stories, from moving Moto2/Moto3 out of the pit lane to limiting their global calendar, that unsettled teams, riders and fans. As Paletta was clear, many of those reports are completely unfounded, and the organization wants to put the record straight. Moto2 and Moto3 are and will continue to be an intrinsic part of the championship. The line is meant to reassure stakeholders that the talent ladder remains intact and visible. As Paletta stressed the practical role Moto2 and Moto3 play, they're not merely support races but the formal pipeline that identifies tomorrow's MotoGP stars quickly for global audiences. The lower categories give young riders exposure, and that exposure fuels the sport's long-term health. From a sporting and commercial perspective, weakening that pathway would risk the grid's renewal. Specific proposals circulating in paddock chatter, racing Moto3 only in Europe, or removing the classes from the main pit lane footprint, were singled out and dismissed. As Paletta labeled such ideas as the product of rumor rather than policy. "Rumors have impressed even me," he joked before calling the more radical claims completely unfounded. Dorna's immediate objective is damage control. Stop speculation becoming a self-fulfilling distraction during a high-profile championship run. As Paletta acknowledged, broadcasting and presentation priorities are evolving as MotoGP grows globally, which can change how titles are described or highlighted. But he was careful to separate presentation tweaks from the underlying fact that all World Championships remain valid and recorded. World Championships are World Championships, and will continue to count in the record books. Language and emphasis may shift as the sport's footprint expands. This matters because how titles are marketed affects history, fan perception, and the prestige of success at every level. Growth and globalization push organizers to adapt broadcast and event formats. Yet, as Paletta argued, that evolution does not equal erasure. The lower classes' role as development arenas is now clearer than ever, he said, as almost every successful Moto3/Moto2 rider now aims for MotoGP. The key task for Dorna will be to modernize presentation while keeping the latter visible and meaningful for riders and fans alike. Carlos says Paletta's remarks were a deliberate attempt to steady the paddock, while MotoGP's global expansion forces changes in presentation and priorities. Moto2 and Moto3 remain core sporting pillars. By rejecting the more extreme rumors and reaffirming the class's status, both practically and historically, Dorna aims to preserve the talent pipeline that underpins the championship, while continuing to adapt how the sport is packaged for an ever larger audience. Thanks for watching ZNGP Today, and this is your MotoGP news update. And see you next time!